An investigation by the UN Human Rights Office has found the former Bangladeshi government, led by then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, systematically engaged in human rights violations during last year's deadly student-led protests. The estimates are that as many as 1,400 people may have been killed in the months of July and August 2024. Well, Irene Khan is an UN Special Rapporteur on the promotion and protection of the right to freedom of opinion and expression, and she joins me now from Dhaka. Irene, good to have you with us tonight. Now, the findings by the UN indicate that Sheikh Hasina and her government used systematically deadly violence against protesters. Can you clarify what this means, systematic deadly violence?
Well, what the report finds is that there was a well-coordinated attempt by the then government using the forces at its disposal, that is the security forces, the police, and the army, to suppress peaceful, non-violent protesters, students, leading to, as you said, 1,400 deaths, including a large number of children.
And you've been calling for this investigation quite some time ago. What evidence does the UN investigation point towards that this crackdown possibly amounts to crimes against humanity?
The UN report actually asks for more investigation to establish crimes against humanity. It was not a criminal investigation, it was a human rights investigation, but they interviewed 230 people, plus a large number of government officials, current and former government officials. They looked at forensic evidence. They had a weapons expert with them. They had a gender expert with them. They did extensive travel throughout the country to collect the evidence from various sources, corroborate and verify. And what it shows clearly that very serious human rights violations have taken place. The government of the day was heavily involved in it. And there is now a very important demand, therefore, to investigate further and to bring those who are suspected to trial.
And is there a belief, and you mentioned this earlier about even children being targeted. So was there a sort of a deliberate targeting of children?
Well, what seems to have happened is just mass shooting with live bullets into a crowd of protesters. And that is one reason why children were affected, because many of the children were on the streets and got shot. So it seems to have been an extremely callous way of attacking civilians who are simply exercising their freedom of expression and assembly.
And a former minister in the Hasina government, he says that the report is based on testimonies from unnamed security officials who themselves may have committed rights violations in those protests and are simply trying to perhaps save their own skins, according to that minister. Does he have a point in are these testimonies reliable?
I would say they are reliable. Of course, if you were to take these cases to court, you would need to do a more thorough criminal investigation. But the UN has not spoken to anonymous people. UN has the names. They have not put those names in the report because there needs to be some safeguards. They have said that obviously the report can be used in a fair trial. They want some guarantees from the government that the evidence would be used properly. They have also advised the current government to preserve evidence properly. There is certainly too many testimonies, too many cross-checking to actually claim that this information is incorrect.
So if the allegations of crimes against humanity are clarified or proven, what happens then? What are the next steps? How does the UN then pursue Sheikh Hasina and members of her ousted government?
The responsibility is actually on the current government of Bangladesh to pursue, because the crimes took place in this country. And as you know, the government has set up, or rather revived, an existing crimes tribunal through which they have indicted a number of people and are putting cases together for prosecution. What the UN has said that the government must make sure that these trials respect due process and international standards, and that there is also a broader effort to find truth and to ensure reparations for those who have been hurt in this process, and try to bring people together to put a proper, just end to this terrible tragedy.
So given all these allegations and that were made in the UN's report, apart from what the Bangladesh interim government at the moment has, how would the UN then also pursue Sheikh Hasina? Because Bangladesh has put out an extradition request for India. She's still there. No indications whatsoever from India that they're willing to give her up. So could that change at the behest of the UN if they make a request?
Well, the request for extradition has to be made by one government to another, and that has happened. And I guess this is a political issue now, as well as a legal issue between the two governments to resolve. What the UN has done is put out the evidence, the moral case for justice and accountability. And hopefully that evidence will convince all parties of the need to ensure proper justice.
And do you foresee that happening now that the reports come out? Perhaps it would give more pressure to New Delhi?
Well, certainly there's going to be pressure on all sides. There's a lot of pressure on the government here from the public, from ordinary citizens. They need to see justice. The government, one of the government advisors recently announced that they are looking into cases. And there's also pressure, obviously, from the UN. But the UN's pressure is for fair trial. So yes, there is evidence of very serious human rights violations. Yes, there is some evidence to indicate that the government of the day and senior officials, including the political leadership, were very closely involved in those human rights violations. But the trials have to be fair and have to be seen to be fair.
Okay, Irene Khan, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.